My name's Martha Curtis, and I was born a vibrant, expressive child, like a lot of people, but age 3 suffered just a really severe case of red measles, and at that point started having seizures. Now, mine began in the limbic system of the brain, which is responsible also for feelings and emotions. So this kind of seizure starts with a very intense emotion, with a very overwhelming emotion. Dostoevsky's, for instance, started with a great feeling of that he never wanted to have gone, ecstasy. How could anyone want to take this from me? Mine started with terror. They started on the horizon. You know where you feel fear, like right here? They'd start right there, and with this impending doom that something was coming to get me. And as it got closer, it was spreading in the brain. I could feel it spread here. And the world just got less and less safe. If it went all the way and jumped to the other side, something came over my left shoulder to kill me. So, and that happened for over 30 years, but they were intermittent. They weren't going on all the time. But I experienced these different levels of fear, from eeriness to terror, and fortunately, it was only part of my life, because I had this mother that had me playing the piano and dancing within a year and a half, and entered me into a world of beauty and order. That went a long way for me. I'm going to just play, it's a section of a Gluck opera. I'll put the mic down for a minute. Somehow. Oh dear. There we go. That was a fortunate addition to my life. Not only adding beauty to my life, she was also training cognitive skill, physical skill, and access to my expressive self. That's pretty much it. Mind, body, soul, got it. By age 10, however, this impending doom was really intense, a lot, as I was trying to fall asleep at night, because it would come as I relaxed, actually. Fortunately, I switched to the violin at that point. And because I hated having a body, I hated it. I remember actually expressing to my mother, I just wanted to be a free-floating spirit with no body to attack me. This violin, when I switched to the violin at that point, by age 11, it took me to Interlaken, where it's a music camp, it's a fine arts camp, where I got to be for 8 weeks. And it put me in an orchestra where I fell in love with life. And I could unleash this spirit with great music, using the body that I hated. That was a fortunate gain. Then I wanted to go to Interlaken for high school, and I auditioned, and I got a very large scholarship, and then they wanted to see, of course, the medical records, all that other paperwork. At which point, they sent me a letter that said, "We are not equipped to handle you here." Yee. But my doctor was pretty convinced that I could do this, and he called that office and said whatever it is doctors say. I mean, they work some kind of magic voodoo on people's heads in offices. And then he turned to me and said, "You could go anywhere from 180 to 300 milligrams of phenobarb a day." Now, I don't know how many people have taken phenobarbital in this room, but it's a very strong barbiturate. But he was convinced, of course, he knew that I would be the person who knew when I was getting close to going even further. And I went off to Interlaken to concentrate all efforts to function at a very high level, because I knew, of course, that I was dependent on the perception of these people. So what was wonderful is that despite the ugly public response to seizures and toxic levels of phenobarb, I took that body that was attacking me and trained it. Trained it instead to save me with beauty. So we did this dance between the attacks and coming to from a seizure and reestablishing beauty as a need. Then I went to the Eastman School of Music, and there another drug was added. I was having a lot of trouble, and reading comprehension got ridiculously difficult, because I don't know, I've taken these major downers. It's really hard to read a dry text of music history and stay there, without reading the sentences a lot of times. So I would come to, after a seizure on my book, and I decided I had to come up, of course, with other strategies to get these A's. And what I did was I didn't read the book. I didn't tell anybody till after I had the A's, but I didn't read the book. I sat in the first couple rows and took stream of consciousness notes and then made my own outline and then memorized it with rhythm. I just put that information in a different part of my body, because as long as I had the rhythm of this outline, I could sort of, in my head, dance my way through the tests and get A's. So to try to figure out these unique responses to life, I went to a mirror, because nobody talks about getting killed over their left shoulder, so that's not one of the things you want to make yourself known for as a child. But I would go to the mirror, because there the eyes would actually understood my story. They knew it already. And I could cut out all outside judgment, not have to deal with anybody's "I should this, I should that." And I could talk and cry and coach myself forward and end with, "Come on, you can do it. I know you can do this." So I graduated from honors from Eastman, but I was seizing visibly. I'd been seizing on stage for ages, but most of them people couldn't see. But this one they could see. People told me I played the third movement all the way through the second movement. And that's when I knew nobody was going to pay me a full-time salary to do this, to their concerts. And I auditioned for part-time orchestras. Now, part-time orchestras are fully professional. They're regional orchestras. It's how most people in the United States hear orchestras, actually. But they don't play as often, so they don't get paid as much. I decided at that price, the world should have to cope. And I took these auditions. Of course, I never told anyone I had epilepsy, that there was any possibility of me clicking out on their rehearsal or performance. I just took the chair. It was like first violin, fourth chair, and then established myself as valuable to the conductor. So my first seizure professionally, I got to the wings. I came to full consciousness in the wings, to this horrified manager. This face, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I said, "Oh, sure, I'm fine. Don't worry about a thing," which is what you do when you come back from a seizure. "Everything's okay, don't worry. Just give me my violin. Everything will be all right." But the response is always, "Just rest." They wanted me to get okay. And I knew I couldn't rest. I didn't know what would happen to me if I rested at that point. And I said, "Just give me my violin. I can do this. Just give me the violin." And finally she gave it to me, and I stood up to look I could still hear this Beethoven symphony I had been rehearsing on stage, but I couldn't find the stage. So she finally walked me through a door I had not yet perceived. And once I got on stage and in my chair, my violin went up. And this well-trained body reconnected me with the beauty and passion of Beethoven. I was back. With consciousness, I had access to beauty. My well-trained body could get me from terror to exhilaration in very few moments. So I continued to travel in and out of this impaired consciousness on stage until reality changed April 1990, when I had 4 grand mal seizures. That's the kind that most people think of when they think seizure, on the floor, everything convulsing, really can't get back all that quickly. 4 of them in a month, 3 of them on stage. And by June, 2 months later, I was sitting in front of Hans Lüders, who is an epileptologist extraordinaire, at that point was at the Cleveland Clinic. Now, this was my 11th neurologist. And in fairness, I didn't fire all of the other 10. I moved a lot. So, but this one was my first to understand music as my driving force. He looked in my eyes and could see the toxicity level of the Tegretol. And just his heart broke. He looked at me and said, "Martha, how do you see the music?" I fell in love with this man because he cared about what I cared about. There was finally somebody who wasn't saying, "We put more people on more Tegretol than this." I mean, he was really wanted to help. Now, up until that point, all my EEGs, all my brainwave tests were normal. And he knew something was the matter. So he put me in the monitoring unit, and at that point, they put like 40, 50 electrodes instead of the normal number on the scalp and pull all the medications. They also, however, put 2 through the jaws, which means now they have a microelectrode on the inside surface of the temporal lobe. And pulled out the drugs, watched me convulse for days, and then got their information. Now, one thing they discovered was that there was interictal spiking, which is spiking that happens between seizures. And normally, it was all on the right. And so this is usually a party on the floor, but they were worried about music memory. And Lüders was really worried. So in the WADA test, he had my husband bring musical excerpts, and when they anesthetized the right brain, I was only using my left brain, et cetera, and when they anesthetized my right brain, of course, I was only using my left. I was only using my right. And what we discovered is that I could not hear the music. I could not hear melody without my left brain. With only my right brain wasn't really helpful. So, however, that, nobody really knows for sure, and the big risk was still the music. I went through with this first surgery, and of course they wanted to hear me play. There's a clicker thingy up here somewhere, right? They wanted to hear me play right afterward out of intensive care, and so I played solo Bach because they were worried about memory. And then he just looked so dumbstruck that I stood up and played some Sibelius just for fun. And then they were so amazed that I knew what to do with a bow. And what music memory is the memory that there is music and that you're related to it. Unfortunately, I started seizing again. We did a second surgery, and in the for a third surgery, the surgeon didn't want to go in there at all. But he did put subdural electrodes. These babies are right on the brain. There's a 4x3 grid there, then 8 down the inside. And it was only, however, this one's still seizing, right behind my eye on the amygdala, the piece that was still seizing. It was only a third of the amygdala left. And he was really scared of this surgery. He came the night before and said, "Martha, here is the piece." He brought my scan. "Here's the piece. Here's the optic nerve. I could so easily blind you tomorrow." And I said, "Don't do that." I could see the optic nerve on the film, so I knew he would have a way to see it. And then he said what he was really worried about was how close it was to a bundle of blood vessels and that he could down my whole left side. And we went into the surgery that way, and I won. He got it. I won. The appropriate terror is gone. I'm only scared if there's something real. I can practice without sabotage. People wonder, how did you go through these surgeries? That's a bit like, how did you keep walking back on stage? And I said, it's pure desire to perform. And the key there is desire, because that's what provides the passion necessary to maneuver against ridiculous odds. It's desire that provides the drive needed for victory. And I'm going to end with a section of the Bach Chaconne that is the expression of that victory. You'll hear the wanderings of the mind, and then you will hear, yes, I can, and then it intensifies to, oh, yes, I can, and drives for the win. Sorry. That's the brain today with the big black hole.